Ferrari is not asking politely anymore. Ferrari wants the FIA to explain how a safety car decision after the British Grand Prix became confusing enough to make Carlos Sainz briefly look like a race winner, while Lewis Hamilton's podium was later confirmed after an FIA investigation. That is not normal race drama. That is the kind of moment that makes every team on the grid look at race control and ask the same question. What exactly happened? Because a safety car can erase a lead. It can flip a strategy. It can change tire temperatures, restart positions, and the entire emotional meaning of a Grand Prix. But when the ruling around it becomes unclear, the issue is no longer just about Ferrari, Hamilton, or Sainz. It becomes about trust. And here is why this is so dangerous for Formula One. The source connects this British Grand Prix controversy to memories of Abu Dhabi 2021, the safety car moment fans still argue about years later. So when Ferrari demands answers now, this is not just a complaint about one decision. It is a warning that Formula One may be walking back into its most sensitive territory. A race changed by procedure, a result surrounded by confusion, a governing body under pressure, and a team as powerful as Ferrari demanding the one thing the FIA cannot afford to withhold: clarity. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why Ferrari's demand hits so hard, you have to understand what the safety car is supposed to represent. Control. That is the whole idea. When a Formula One race becomes dangerous, the safety car comes out to slow everything down. The cars stop attacking at full speed. The gaps close. The drivers follow a controlled pace. Marshals get space to work. The race is held together until it can safely restart. On paper, it sounds simple. Safety first. But at the British Grand Prix, the problem was not only that the safety car changed the race. The problem was that the decision and the ruling around it created confusion. And confusion is where trust begins to break. Because in Formula One, a safety car does not just calm a race down. It can completely rewrite it. A driver can spend lap after lap building an advantage, only to see it disappear in seconds. A team can choose the perfect strategy, only for the timing of the safety car to make that strategy look wrong. Another driver can suddenly gain track position, fresher tires, or a better restart chance without having to overtake on pure pace. That is why Ferrari wanted answers. Not because Ferrari does not understand that safety matters. Every team understands that. Ferrari wanted answers because a safety car decision that affects the result has to be clear enough for everyone to follow. The drivers need to understand it. The teams need to understand it. The fans need to understand it. And most importantly, the final classification has to feel stable. But according to the source, the British Grand Prix fallout included something deeply unusual. A bizarre FIA ruling briefly made Carlos Sainz look like a British Grand Prix winner, while Lewis Hamilton later retained his podium after an FIA investigation. That is the kind of sequence that makes the paddock stop. Because even if the final result is confirmed, people still ask how the confusion happened in the first place. And that is the real danger for the FIA. Not simply that Ferrari was unhappy. Not simply that Hamilton's podium was investigated. Not simply that Sainz's name briefly appeared in a way that shocked people. The danger is that the process itself became the story. Formula One can handle losing. Ferrari can handle losing. Drivers can handle losing. Fans can handle a result they dislike. What the sport struggles with is a result that people do not immediately understand. There is a huge difference. If a driver gets passed on track, everyone sees it. If a tire strategy fails, people can usually understand it. If rain arrives and changes the race, that is part of the chaos of sport. But when a ruling changes how people think the result should look, and then another investigation confirms something else, the audience is left trying to piece together the race after it has already ended. That is not drama. That is uncertainty. And uncertainty after the checkered flag is one of the worst things Formula One can create. During the race, uncertainty is exciting. Nobody knows who will pit. Nobody knows if the tires will last. Nobody knows if the restart will create a fight. That kind of uncertainty is the reason people watch. But after the race, uncertainty becomes dangerous. Because after the checkered flag, people want answers. They want to know who won. They want to know who finished on the podium. They want to know whether a penalty changed anything. They want to know whether the safety car was handled correctly. They want to know why Ferrari is demanding an explanation. And if those answers are not clear, fans start filling the gap themselves. That is exactly how Formula One controversies grow. One person says Ferrari has a point. Another says the FIA followed procedure. Another says Hamilton's podium being retained proves the result was correct. Another says the fact Sainz briefly looked like a winner proves the system became confused. Then someone brings up Abu Dhabi 2021. And suddenly, the British Grand Prix is no longer just the British Grand Prix. It becomes part of a much bigger wound. That is why the source's Abu Dhabi 2021 reference matters. It shows that the moment people hear safety car and FIA in the same controversy, they do not think only about the current race. They remember the most disputed safety car finish in modern Formula One history. They remember the arguments. They remember the confusion. They remember the feeling that a race result became bigger than racing. That memory changes everything. It means the FIA is not starting from zero. Every safety car controversy now lands on top of old mistrust. Every unclear ruling is compared with past decisions. Every team demand becomes part of a larger conversation about whether the sport has truly learned how to communicate its most powerful calls. And Ferrari knows that. Ferrari understands the weight of the moment. This is not a small team trying to get attention. This is the most famous name in Formula One asking the governing body to explain a decision that affected one of the most important races on the calendar. That gives the demand force. Because Ferrari is not only protecting its own interest, Ferrari is also forcing the FIA to face the question every team quietly cares about. Could this happen to us next time? Could another safety car decision create confusion again? Could another ruling briefly reshape the apparent result? Could another podium, another win, or another points finish be thrown into uncertainty after the race? That is why teams demand explanations. They are not only looking backward, they are protecting the future. Every FIA ruling becomes a reference point. Every safety car decision becomes part of the memory bank. Every confusing classification becomes something strategists, drivers, lawyers, and team principals will remember when the next borderline moment arrives. Formula One is built on precedent, even when people do not use that word. If something happened once, teams want to know why. If it could happen again, teams want to know how. And if the explanation is not strong enough, the next controversy is already waiting. That is the first major layer of this story. Ferrari's demand is not only about the British Grand Prix. It is about whether Formula One's most race-changing decisions can be trusted when the pressure is at its highest. But the second layer is even more uncomfortable, because Ferrari's demand is not only about what the FIA decided. It is about how that decision looked to everyone watching. And in Formula One, appearance matters almost as much as the rulebook. A race can be legally settled, officially confirmed, and written into the record, but if the route to that result looks confusing, the controversy survives. It survives in the paddock. It survives in the fan debate. It survives in every future moment where race control has to make another fast decision under pressure. That is what makes this British Grand Prix situation so dangerous. According to the source, Lewis Hamilton retained his podium after an FIA investigation. At the same time, the fallout also included a bizarre ruling that briefly made Carlos Sainz look like a British Grand Prix winner. Those two details together create the perfect storm. One driver's podium is under official attention. Another driver briefly appears connected to a shocking possible result. Ferrari demands answers. And the FIA is suddenly not just managing the race anymore. The FIA is defending the credibility of the outcome. That is a very different kind of pressure, because teams can accept bad luck. They can accept a strategy gamble going wrong. They can accept a rival gaining from a safety car if the logic is clear. But what they cannot accept easily is uncertainty over the process that created the final classification. The final classification is supposed to be the end of the story. At Silverstone, it became the beginning of a new one. And that is where the FIA has a problem. The governing body may have followed procedure. The investigation may have reached a valid conclusion. Hamilton may have kept the podium for reasons that are completely defensible within the rules. The confusion around Sainz may have been temporary, technical, or procedural. But if fans and teams are left asking why it looked that strange, then the explanation has not done its job yet. Because Formula One is not only judged by experts, it is judged by millions of people who need the basic shape of a race to make sense. They do not need every legal detail. They do not need every internal message. They do not need a regulation book read aloud after every race. But they do need to understand the key logic. Why did the safety car decision matter? Why did the ruling briefly create that impression around Sainz? Why was Hamilton's podium investigated? Why was it ultimately retained? And why should anyone trust that the same situation would be handled the same way next time? That last question is the one Ferrari is really forcing into the open. Because the issue is not only what happened at the British Grand Prix. The issue is what every team learns from it. Formula One teams do not forget these moments. They store them. They study them. They ask how the FIA interpreted the situation. They ask what part of the process created the confusion. They ask whether the same wording, the same timing, or the same safety car procedure could affect them later in the season. For teams, controversy is not just noise. It is data. Every strange ruling becomes a warning. Every delayed explanation becomes a risk. Every confusing classification becomes something to prepare for. And for Ferrari, that matters because Ferrari operates under pressure that few teams in the world understand. When Ferrari loses, it is a headline. When Ferrari questions the FIA, it becomes an event. When Ferrari believes a race-changing decision needs explanation, the entire sport has to listen. That does not mean Ferrari is automatically right, but it does mean the question cannot be dismissed. The FIA cannot simply say the result stands and expect the debate to disappear, because the debate is not only about whether the result stands, it is about whether the process stood up to scrutiny. And this is where the safety car becomes such a dangerous symbol. A safety car is supposed to create order, but it often exposes disorder. It reveals who understands the rules quickly and who does not. It reveals which teams can react instantly and which teams are caught out. It reveals how much trust there is between race control, the pit wall, the drivers, and the fans. When that trust is strong, a safety car feels like part of racing. When that trust is weak, a safety car feels like a threat. Not a threat to safety, a threat to certainty. That is why Abu Dhabi 2021 keeps coming back in these conversations. Not because every safety car controversy is the same. They are not. Not because this British Grand Prix situation should be treated as an exact copy. It should not. But because Abu Dhabi became the emotional reference point for what happens when a safety car decision leaves people arguing about the legitimacy of a result. Once Formula One fans have lived through that kind of controversy, they never hear safety car the same way again. They listen differently. They question faster. They distrust sooner. And that creates a burden for the FIA every time a safety car decision affects a major result. The burden is not just to be right.